I liked the players. I liked the culture that was around them. I sensed they liked each other. And now these were Napier guys, right? And so the season starts the way it did, and I am completely lost. I'm like, okay, what did I miss here? I mean, I'm not I'm not Steve Spurrier. I'm not, even Billy Napier when it comes to being a football expert. But I've been doing this long enough that I kind of have a pretty good idea of I know what I see,
Yeah.
right? And so I was so confused by that. And actually, I remember sitting in Billy Napier's office with him probably after 3 or 4 weeks into the season, and I kind of wanted to know if he felt the same way.
Another Dooley Noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. Okay, welcome into another edition of another Newly Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI and Imaging. Actually had a really good meeting with Joe Calorio yesterday. I'll get to that in a minute. And also, it comes to you from the Meldon Law Gator Studios here at the Ponderosa, and we appreciate Meldon as well. I met with Kyle and Joe about the golf tournament because the three of us, and then my brother are the ones who pretty much put the tournament on. Pretty much I put it on, and then people help. It's a labor of love, I will say that. There's still some questions about whether we can have it or not. It's very hard to get into total details on it, but we're waiting to see some things and how it's all going to shake out. Ironwood's, I don't know if Ironwood opened yet today. They were supposed to open yesterday, the kitchen and everything. And of course they had to pull out rugs. So anyway, I know you don't care about it, but I do care about it. Today we got to have a good show. Sean Kelley's going to join us, the voice of the Gators, of course. And we'll talk to him about how things have gotten a lot better around here lately. Coach Spurrier again on Monday, brought to you by Meldon Law, and then on the following Thursday, Kevin O'Sullivan. We'll find out what kind of baseball program he thinks he's going to have this year. And it's funny because when I think back to last year's, it pretty much wasn't what they thought it would be, but it ended up being as good or better because of what they did in the postseason. I think they thought they were going to be like one of those teams you didn't have to question whether they were going to be in the postseason or not. Anyway, we'll talk to Sully about that. So we'll talk to Sean Kelley in just a little bit. We'll mention baseball to him as well. Let's move along to our Royal Blue starting five. It is brought to you by Royal Blue, the place to go and get a beautiful boat and go over there and take a look at them. Man, they've got some gorgeous boats. I can tell you that. It's pretty impressive stuff over there in Placa. And Randy is a good friend, and we appreciate him being a sponsor here on our show. And like we talked about last week, we have some new sponsors. We're going to get to them as well. Let's go ahead. But we've always got room for more. We're in fine shape right now, but one more wouldn't hurt. If somebody wanted to come on and you had a good idea, or look, so far people have liked the ideas that I've given them. Whether it's yes, no way, or maybe, or this, that, and the other, or the Gallo sponge of the week. They've liked the ideas I've given them. I usually give them options. So, think about something. If you want to get involved, man, we still got room for you. Not many more, maybe one more. All right, let's get to our Royal Blue starting five. And number one, of course, was after Tuesday night, we kind of pumping the brakes a little bit on that Final Four talk, which I thought people should have been doing anyway. I mean, you act like, oh, we have a good team. When do we start playing the Final Four? I mean, no, it doesn't work that way. First of all, it's a grind all year. You've got to keep guys healthy, and you've got to win a lot of tough games. You're not going to get there by beating nobodies. And certainly Florida's win over Tennessee was huge for them. Their win over Arkansas hopefully holds up to be huge. You never know. But and then they go and they lose to Missouri. Now the Missouri game was knocked them down a couple of notches in the net rankings. I think they're down to number 7 now. But the bottom line is this team is really a good team, but they still have to play with that edge. And I mean, look, I've been through this with 100 Florida basketball teams where you sit there and you watch them and go, now there's some of them you've watched and go, nah, they're not very good. And they got a long way to go. But most of the teams, or the more of the teams that are like, Yeah, they're pretty good, but now you got to get through the grind, the first part. First part is a grind of the non-conference. The second part is a grind of the conference, which is brutal, especially right now in this conference with everybody's ranked and everything. And like Missouri's not ranked, but they're good. You saw those guys play. That Grill kid couldn't miss, man. I mean, what are you going to do? Some days you don't. You have to play with an edge, with an intensity, the same intensity you play with against Tennessee. You got to do that every week, every game you play. I don't care who you're playing. You've got to do it. And sometimes, again, we're talking about, even though this is an older team and they should know better, it's human nature. And even Todd Golden talked about that after the Arkansas game, because it was human nature. We knew we might have a little bit of a struggle to start the game because, we just are coming off this huge win. And look, maybe I think he thought, well, we'll be back to normal, back at home and everything. But instead, they did the same thing and got into a big hole, the hole that was too big to climb out of. The 1 point deficit's not very indicative of how that game went. But anyway, it'll help on their net ranking. This still could be a really good team. And like all I've ever said, and I'm not trying to be a negative Nelly, I'm just like, we're what now, 4 games into the SEC schedule? Pump the brakes on some of this Final Four talk and everything. We have no idea what's going to happen going forward. We have no idea who's going to be in what games, who's going to get injured, who's not going to get injured, who's going to get injured from other teams, whether one guy decides to leave in the middle of the year, right before a game at Georgia. It's because somebody wanted to sign him for some money. He didn't know it was wrong to do that. No. And again, Christian Dreyer still doesn't understand that concept of team and everything like that. But again, different culture. Somebody's offering you a lot of money to come play basketball. That's what you've been wanting to do. I don't not get it, but certainly we're built a little differently, I think, in this country, where we are, you don't let your teammates down. That's my opinion, but we seem to see it more and more, letting your teammates down. Anyway, let's get along to number 2 on our Royal Blues starting 5, and that is that Florida will play Texas on Saturday. Interesting game there. Texas isn't, look, almost every team, I think maybe every team, is good enough to beat Florida. They're good enough. They've got enough players to beat Florida. You saw that again Tuesday night. You saw it even with the game in Fayetteville, where that team was good enough to beat Florida. Florida hit some big shots, made some big plays, got things done. So Texas is good enough to do it. They don't rank real high. They're 40th in total defense. They're 8th in offense. They've got what? Oh, they're 0-5 in quad 1 games. That's not good. That's not going to help their resume, and that's why they're, I think, 40th or something like that in the net ranking. So they need some big wins, and winning and Gainesville, that's like 1.5 quad 1s. So the Gators better come out ready to play and stay out of foul trouble. And look, it'd be nice if you could have a list of coaches, and when you found out these guys were going to be your referees, every coach could just go, okay, it's going to be this kind of game. Now, so that way you could say, we get 1 foul on Condon, we need to get somebody else in there because he could get the second one right away because this guy's going to call it close, or this guy's going to let you play. So, don't whine about calls, and you have to take the ball to the basket aggressively and make some things happen. You never know what you're getting. Unfortunately, there isn't anything like that. I guess you could say that some of these different analytics you could use for that. You could just say, "Hey, look, we're going to study every referee, and we're going to find out the ones that are soft, the ones that are hard." I'm sure they do that. But as fans, you don't know it, and you're going, "Oh God, they're letting them play tonight." After the 3rd concussion. Anyway. So it'll be a big game for Florida still. They need to come back, fight back, and get a win. Like I said, they'll be favorites, but doesn't really matter who's favorites in college sports. Again, they never post the odds until the day of. Um, I think it's like when the last game is played, they post the odds for basketball. Sometimes you can find them, but I never know how accurate they are. A lot of times it's just, it'd probably be an 8-point favorite. Let me put that in there. Anyway, Florida, Texas, 4 o'clock on Saturday. Let's get to number 3 on our Royal Blue starting 5, and that is Florida still looking for another quarterback. Because look, you got the freshman coming in who's going to help you. You got a guy who will now be a sophomore who is going to be your guy, and you know that, and that's why it's hard to get another quality backup. And they thought they had it in Purdue kid, but he ended up going elsewhere, got more money, got out of his deal. It is what it is. I'm not going to even get into that, some of that. And instead, they're going after this kid, CJ Ogbonan, something like that. Anyway, he's a pretty good player. But this is to be your second guy who, if you get in trouble, you can let him go. And, you can play him. But then you also have this other freshman who you can play certain plays too. You want to try to keep his red shirt because you want to do what FSU used to do. Remember when every year FSU would have a redshirt junior quarterback would be their starter every year, it felt like. And they would just redshirt him for 3 years and get him ready to play. So anyway, we'll see where that goes. Well, I'm kind of looking for some news out of the portal. It's been kind of dead. It's been good news for Florida pretty much in that guys are coming back and saying, no, we're good. We're going to stay here at Florida. Anyway, let's move on to number 4 on our Royal Blues starting 5, and that is the games we've got coming up, obviously, in the NFL. I don't really have, and I got the same problem with college football. I need somebody to hate. I don't really despise any of these teams. So, I don't despise the Rams, or I kind of like Philly. What are you going to do though? But at least we know who's in the quarterfinals, and it'll be good. I will say I think I've got this thing timed up perfectly because on Saturday they're having this up at Sweetmeats up in High Springs. You guys know that place. They're having a chili and a rib cook-off, and they've asked me to be a judge. Ribs. Well, as soon as it's over, I'll jump in my little car. I'll drive. Well, we don't live very far from High Springs. It'll be time for football all day. It's a pretty good setup. I may have to get some adult beverages to help me out with. But anyway, encourage any of you to go there because, you're not going to have to. Look, everything starts at 4. Football on Saturday, Gator basketball on Saturday, and you can go to Sweetmeats and go to the have some chili, man, and have some ribs and pretty good stuff. I can't wait to see what it's going to take. It is going to feel like a little bit of pressure if I have to really be a judge, Like usually I eat it and go, yeah, I'll have some more. Okay, let's get to number 5 on our Royal Blue starting 5, and that is Urban Meyer. Made the Hall of Fame yesterday, which is a big deal. And now seems like there's no reason not to put him in the Ring of Honor. Now, I think Urban served his time. You know what I mean? Like Urban did some things that were questionable, but he did a lot of great things too. I always tell people, I go, you won't believe this, but before Urban Meyer came here, there was no Gator Walk. There was no Ring of Honor. There was no multiple things that they do now that are part of your every game day routine, right? That was all Urban brought it all in, and then won 2 national championships and brought you Tim Tebow, who you get to see every day. Feels like. Look, he did a lot of great things. Now there were some things that were shaky, or maybe he was a little entitling. Maybe he was. He shouldn't have let some guys get away with some stuff, but he was trying to win. He felt the pressure of winning, and it almost killed him. And I just think it's time. I think a lot of people feel that way now, and it's time. And maybe we can put him and Fred Taylor in. How great would that be? Put both of them in for a game. I'm sure he can make the time and get away from his other job to come over here, because he doesn't live that far away. It's only a few hours away over there in what is it? It's that area over there, where people have money at. Not where I would be able to live, like Sand Key, something like that. I don't know. It's really nice. I'm one day I'm sure I'll be invited. All right, it is complicated with urban, but it would be really cool. I think the biggest reason that a lot of people have said, "Hey, you know what? Nah, I don't want him in," and I think a lot of people said it because they don't want to hear him get booed. And there are going to be some people are going to boo him no matter what. That's just the way it is, because they didn't like what he did. They didn't like the things he did. Maybe they're very upset about the assistant who was here and then was at Ohio State and got in trouble. There's no point in rehashing all that. All I'm saying is that's always been the fear. And then Scott Strickland was pushing for it, and then he went to the Jaguars, and things did not go well there, as you all know, and there's pictures and videos and stuff like that. So anyway, the bottom line is he should go in. I think he should, and I'm all in favor of it. Enough time has passed, and I'm excited about it, and hopefully it'll happen this year. We need to do that anyway. I mean, I think we've talked about this before. It's way too restrictive, and they need to have me on the committee in the first place, and I'll tell them what to do, and I'll explain it to them, because nobody knows the Gators like I do. That's what I keep telling people. It may not be true, but if enough people hear it, they'll believe it eventually. All right, that is going to do it for our Royal Blue starting five. Appreciate all of you for being on and for listening to the show or watching it. We'll take a break. We'll come back with Sean Kelley, the play-by-play or the play-by-play man of the Gators. You know him well. He's almost like expected. Like when you turn the game on, you know you're going to hear him. And I think that we've gotten to that point. I'll ask him about that too. And we'll play yes, no, or maybe with him as well. And then later on, all of our fun stuff, including our new sponsors. We've got a lot of stuff to get to. So let's get to it. Let's start off with this commercial break. Here are just a few reasons why doing business with the Royal Blue puts you at the helm of your boating lifestyle. 1, the longer we have your listing, the lower percentage commissions you will pay. 2, survey reimbursement for qualified buyers. 3, detail reimbursement for qualified sellers. 4, on-the-water delivery orientation availability. Call us today to schedule a consultation to see what Royal Blue can do to solve all of your boating needs. Call Randy at 850-974-1294.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Bite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Okay, and welcome back to another duly noted podcast brought to you by Titan MRI and Imaging, and of course coming to you from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator Studios. It's always a great pleasure to bring on our Big Mills Cheesesteaks Zoom line our good friend Sean Kelley, the voice of the Florida Gators. I gotta just start calling you voice, because that's usually what I used to call Mick, just voice. I go, hey voice, what's up?
It's one of those titles that, for me, Pat, is somewhat uncomfortable. Number one, because Mick will always be the voice of the Gators. But my whole career, I've always just kind of just referred to myself as I'm just the radio guy, So, but the voice of the Gators thing does have something. There is history to it. And you're not the only one that says voice. So I guess that's what will stick.
Yeah, that's it. I know you've had your heart broken this over the last couple of weeks with what's happened in New Orleans. One of I was trying to think which one of those things was it. We had the fires, we have the icy, people dying there, and of course what happened. But you're knowing New Orleans as well as you do, to see that something like that happen just has to break your heart.
I've been sick over it for, like you said, a good amount of time now, and I literally had my breath taken away by the tragedy that happened in a city that really wants to embrace people coming from all over the world. And it's funny when you live in New Orleans, Pat, like you rarely kind of go down to Bourbon Street. You go there when people come in from out of town and they want to see it because it's world renowned and everything else. And so this time of year, whether it be New Year's or the Sugar Bowl, obviously, the Super Bowl's coming up. I got to think it's New Orleans and Miami that still might be 1 and 2 in some order as far as how many Super Bowls they've hosted. But this is a city that's opened their arms up time and time again. And when news like this happens, it breaks your heart. And a lot of the victims of that tragedy are young people too. I mean, you and I aren't going to be out at 3 a.m. during New Year's celebrations, but so many young people felt like they could be there and enjoy, something truly unique. And I just look, it's New Orleans because I lived there for so long, but it's any tragedy like this that makes us all stop and pause a little bit.
Yeah, my daughter is out there in LA, and of course she hasn't been affected by the fires, but she's had trouble sleeping because you never know when somebody's gonna come banging on your door. You better get out. The flames are all over the place.
That's the thing too, and I've had Katrina flashbacks with what's going on out in Los Angeles. But what's more unique about the Los Angeles situation, like you said, you can have a bag packed, but that kind of, am I going to be home in 8 hours? Is somebody going to bang on my door, like you said? And I don't know where those people begin, just knowing what we went through with Katrina. And this seems to be on a whole different level. And to know that there could be a human hand involved in this too. I mean, that's the evil that we're experiencing right now.
That just makes you, yeah.
What a wonderful way to start off our visit, Pat.
Yeah, I was going to bring up Bob Uecker passing away today too, but I'll just try to keep it light from now on.
Yeah, there's another tragic loss for us, not only just broadcasting but baseball too, obviously.
Great. And my favorite line of his was always, he knew how to catch a knuckleball. You just stop when it stops rolling, you pick it up.
How many lines did that guy have? And how many times did he appear just on Johnny Carson alone? Think about the Tonight Show appearances, what he became from being an average Major League Baseball player. Look, anybody who reaches the major leagues is not average, but he was an average Major League Baseball player and found himself in film, television, entertainment. And every time I got to go to Milwaukee and work a game, I always popped in. He didn't know me from Adam, but you had to say hello to Bob Uecker, right?
Yeah, he's one of the best. Those Miller Lite commercials. I mean, I must be in the front row.
Oh my gosh. It's one of my favorite things about YouTube is that you can go back and pull up those old commercials. There were Jack Buck and Whitey Herzog commercials that they did for Busch Beer. Obviously Uecker with the front row and he did other commercials, those beer commercials with other great baseball players. And there was always that self-deprecating humor that came in to play with Uecker at all times. It was his thing.
Absolutely. Well, let me ask you about you, and that is because you probably were wondering what you signed up for when Florida could not win anything for a while there. And then all of a sudden the last few months have been a lot more fun, I would think, for you, just winning 4 straight in football and off to a 50-2 start in basketball.
Yeah, no doubt. Winning is always fun, right? And after kind of, like you said, it was a bit of a struggle there for a while, with the exception of baseball, where seemingly all I do is go to Omaha now here at Florida. And I keep teasing Jeff about that. I said, I know you've been more times than me, but I haven't missed yet. So, but no, it's been a really good run. And I think the fan base needed it in a big way. I think the two head coaches involved. I think, Pat, I remember back to when you and I first talked right after I got the job. One of the things that I was really interested in was getting to watch both of those gentlemen build their programs from the ground up, from scratch, basically, at the same time. And to kind of see it kind of really start to come to fruition a little bit here, not just necessarily on the same timeline, but darn near close, has been really kind of cool, because I think back to that first conversation and when would it happen? How would it happen? And it's been a pretty good run. Of course, I'm thinking a lot about the Missouri game the other night, and all of us live in the moment in the sports world. And so I have to look down at my sheet here and say, yeah, Florida's still 15-2, but yet that thing stings the other night at home against Mizzou.
Yeah, you never want to lose at home. And I mean, but I've said this all along. Every team in this league is good enough to beat you. Okay. There's a lot of leagues where there are teams that just couldn't beat you no matter how, but they're all good enough to beat you, and you better show up every night. You got to come ready to play.
I said the same thing to Lee Humphrey the other night. I said, welcome to the SEC in 2025. I mean, that's what this basketball conference is. Last night, Georgia's got Tennessee in a 1-point game at halftime. Now, it gets away from them, obviously, but, last Saturday, Auburn, the number one team of the country, somehow gets out of Columbia, South Carolina with a win. I mean, they were on the ropes.
Right.
So, yes, the premium, as you mentioned, is his home games. When you get in a conference situation like this, you got to do everything possible to try and win the home game, because the road's just going to be so brutal. So maybe it's a trade here in the first three, in that you picked up a road win at Arkansas, one of the tougher places to play, even though maybe they're not as good as Cal would like them to be, obviously. But then you lose the home game to Missouri. So maybe you've swapped it out, and when it's all said and done, if Pat, if you would have asked me at the turn of the calendar year, Sean, the Gators can go 2-1 in their first three in the SEC play, I probably would have said I'll take it. And that's, kind of what happened. And now they're 2-2 with a chance now here with another home game on Saturday against Texas to still be above 500 through this first, I guess, third of the conference schedule, basically.
Yeah, that's a big game. I mean, they need to take care of home court. I'm sure that's been stressed to the players and by Coach
Yeah,
Cole.
they know.
Yeah,
that's the unique thing about this group. You don't really need to tell them much.
Right.
In my world, kind of like yours, there's broadcasting the game, right? But then there's also all the other content that goes with it. Whether it's a podcast or a pregame interview or a feature on Todd Golden's TV show, to where you want to get to know the young man a little bit more. You want to flesh out their story, right? Tell me about where you grew up. Tell me about your influences, all those things. These guys want no part of that. They could care less whether I ask them about the way they tie their shoes before a game, which is refreshing, because all they care about is winning. You don't really need to tell them much about what's at stake. But it is a little frustrating for me when I need to fill those other content pieces with some personality type stuff.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about that though, because I'm just curious where you are, Sean, in terms of. I mean, do you have a favorite place to go have a beer? Do you have a favorite place to go get a piece of pizza? I mean, have you gotten to where you're a Gainesvillian yet? Because I know you're still doing a lot of traveling for the NBA too. Yeah,
no, I do, but at the same time, I think now here in my third season, I've found a few spots that I like going to. I mean, Spurrier's has kind of become this gathering place, right? And I think that's relatively new in Gainesville history, if we're being honest about it. But, even going downtown is a different feel a little bit. And I like doing that. And there's you've got these little great spots like, Big Mills and Leonardo's. And I try to hit more and more of them as I can. And I rely on like you and Shane and a few others to say, hey, have you tried this place yet? Sometimes it's hard to do to work in the schedule. But, the one thing that's for sure is, and this has been from day one, is that I think as much of being Gainesville is just being amongst others in Gainesville. We have a somewhat transient community a little bit with the medical center and the university, but there's this core, citizenry that's been there for whether it be decades or generations. And that really is what is at the core of this community. And you know how I mentioned earlier about New Orleans that kind of throw the arms open and they kind of welcome everybody from around the world. Seemingly Gainesville has this ability to be a transient community and be okay with that. You know, it's like it's our town, right? And we have our things, but we're really good with you coming and going as you need to go with regard to jobs, careers. And while you're here, we want to make sure you feel at home. And you know, I think we would all like them to say good things about us here in Gainesville when they do move past, but that's the thing. And you know, when you live in New Orleans as long as I did, you learn that that city despises chain anything. And so for the longest time, this is mostly pre-Katrina too, was chain restaurants, businesses had a really hard time establishing themselves in New Orleans because they didn't want the town didn't want any part of them. And I would go travel all over and I'd say, you know, we can have this chain here. This is okay. This is actually a good thing, right? Gainesville a little bit that way too. It has this mix because we attract chains and name brand stuff because of the university and everything else. But yet, like as you said, in some of the places that I mentioned that I like to go to, that's our own too. So I kind of feel a little bit of that New Orleans protection of our own here in Gainesville as well.
Yeah, it does, especially when you get downtown to the Hippodrome and stuff like that. It feels almost New Orleans-y down in the area.
Well, like think about Ballyhoo too, right? There's another great example of a place that, you know, is everything still held there or is it this? No, but when you go to a place like that, it still feels a lot of the ways it did when you were a younger man or when there was a particular moment in time, a memory that when you walk back in, you still have that same feeling, right? You can touch back to something when you have a place like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the good thing too is that you are getting to watch a lot more fun games, but certainly the turnaround they showed at the end in football, I think we were all kind of at wit's end up until that point, and that now it feels like, okay, now it's really going the right direction.
Well, I was so confused at the start of the football season because I watched what was going on in the spring and then the summer training camp.
Right.
And for the first time since getting here, I had a good feeling about the football team. I liked the players. I liked the culture that was around them. I sensed they liked each other. And now these were Napier guys, right? And so the season starts the way it did, and I am completely lost. I'm like, okay, what did I miss here? I mean, I'm not Steve Spurrier. I'm not, even Billy Napier when it comes to being a football expert. But I've been doing this long enough that I kind of have a pretty good idea of I know what I see, right? And so I was so confused by that. And actually, I remember sitting in Billy Napier's office with him probably after 3 or 4 weeks into the season, and I kind of wanted to know if he felt the same way. What did I miss here? Are you surprised by how this has started? And he said yes. I mean, he readily admitted that he himself even saw better things with regard to the season. Now, there are a couple factors, Pat. Miami and Cam Ward turned out to be better than I believed that they were going to be at the start of the season. Sure. Texas A&M was different for sure this year. Those things didn't help, but it wasn't until after that first bye week, and then the team plays the way they did at Tennessee, that the thing starts to turn around a little bit. And I guess I've been doing, again, that phrase, doing this long enough to know that after that start and that seat was so hot, I mean, that was a red hot seat underneath Billy Napier. And a lot of times I've seen one of two things happen. One is the players themselves kind of turn away from the head coach. They realize the hot seat moment, and it kind of starts to implode from there. Or in the locker room, because things aren't going well, there's a lot of infighting that can start. And neither of those two things happened. And that's when you had to know that they had a chance, right? But it also spoke to what I thought I was seeing in the summer and this past spring, which was that character, that culture, this quality, the depth, all that stuff started to come into play. And then they figured it out, and obviously the season had a much different story to it. It's a roller coaster that I can't remember being on like that before. I'm just glad it ended the way it did, as opposed to any kind of a downturn. The the bowl was not the kind of bowl you want, but the bowl result was exactly what you wanted. And it was the capper.
Sometimes it's okay to get stuck in a bowl like that because of the opposition you're going to play. Now, the last time they played in that bowl, nobody showed up, and so they didn't play well, but they certainly played better in this game. They should have won that game by a lot more, too.
Well, it looked a lot like a game that, teams have been off for a month, basically, in some ways. But it also speaks to the fact of, I know you've touched on this past football team, let's be honest here, with a couple of exceptions, the majority of the talent on that team is young. Mm-hmm. So when you get to a bowl game, you're going to have less opt-outs. You're going to have less, transfer portal nonsense going into that bowl game. So the future is I think pretty bright for this group, and the bowl game was a chance for them to kind of solidify things going into the offseason. And you had the buy-in, or you had the participation, that's the better word. You had the participation that you did because how many of your high-impact players were young, and then a couple of the older guys felt like they still either wanted to help finish the job or two, needed to show something one more time to perhaps the next level. And so therefore, Florida gets away with, in this day and age, putting forth a good bowl team and therefore getting a win.
All right, it is time for us to play Yes, No, Where, Maybe with our good friend Sean Kelley. Is brought to you by Big Mill's cheesesteak or T-steak, which is, of course, street dining done the right way. Go in there and say you listen to this, you get free fries with your order. All right, number one on Yes, No, Where, Maybe. NFL teams will sweep the playoff games at home this weekend.
Maybe. I'm saying that because out of a long stretch, I've watched the least amount of NFL this year than I have in a long time. So I feel a little less educated than I normally would this time of year. So I got to go with maybe.
I think they might not. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
All right, number two on Yes, No, Where, Maybe. The seeding for college football's championship will change for next year. Yes. I know a lot of people think it's going to be a year, but I think it'll be this year.
I think it's going to be this year too. It's interesting. There are some pretty heavy topics that have come up now with regard to the coaches' meetings and what they want to present to the NCAA and the competition committee and whatnot. The seeding is going to come into play. The injured player thing is a tough one to tackle, but I think that's a real conversation. I think
it's a very simple solution. You come off the field injured, you have to sit out 3 plays. Just make it that simple.
Yeah, 3 plays, or I think what was the latest one talked about? You can't come back in during the current series.
Yeah, or during the series, if that's how far they want to take it's going to depend. Yeah,
that's a pretty strong deterrent, if you will. But we're in a cycle, right? This all goes in cycles.
In theory, if you've turned your ankle, you shouldn't be able to come back for 3 plays, right? So
Correct.
That's what drives me a little bit crazy. But all right, number 3 on Yes, No, Where, Maybe. When people at Gator Club start to talk to you about NIL, your eyes glaze over.
No, they don't. They don't glaze over, but I am I'm in the mode of kicking the can down the road a little bit because that's what we're doing in college athletics. I'm really eager to see what the landscape looks like going into next fall. I think when that conversation's come up, I've said, I'll answer your questions as best I can in the moment. Just know that whatever I tell you is probably irrelevant in a month. And that's proven to be the case. And we're going to go through that cycle one more time when revenue sharing and however that's going to look comes into play. And what does NIL do around it at that point? So that's where we are in this sense. It'd be interesting to see, back to the New Orleans thing. When I first got into the NBA, it was during a time where free agency in the NBA was a big deal with regard to market size. That a market the size of New Orleans couldn't attract a big free agent because they wouldn't allow the marketing, or they would not have the capability to give a player the marketing opportunities they would have in a bigger market, Chicago, Houston, Dallas, whatever, New York, LA. I'll be curious when revenue sharing kicks in, Pat, and NIL truly becomes more of a marketing compensation, if you will. What does that do to, you know, is Florida a marketable place? Are they a New York or LA of college athletics? Do you know what I mean? I mean, that's kind of what I'm leaning towards saying is a player going to Auburn, Alabama worth as much NIL wise as, say, a big metro market, you know?
Yeah.
Or does Vanderbilt become now a better NIL market because they're in the heart of Nashville? I don't know. I mean,
well, Vandy doesn't like to spend they want to spend all their money on putting it back into their coffers. But I will say, it looks like that new stadium is going to be pretty decent. Like it's going to be okay, you know.
It is. Brand will be important though. And whether that helps Vandy's brand, I don't think so, but it'll make all of us, our lives better when we go there.
All right. We appreciate it so much for you coming on. Sean Kelley joining us here on another Duly Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI and Imaging from the Gator Studios.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you, man.
Meldon Law has been serving personal injury victims since 1971. In those days, Jeffrey Meldon's presence as an attorney in the music scene dubbed him with the nickname the Hippie Attorney. And although times have changed, two things haven't: our commitment to bettering our community by helping the injured,
Albert, are you ready to go to the game?
and our love for the Florida Gators.
If you bleed orange and blue, Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Adams Rib Company has been a staple of Gainesville for more than a decade and a staple of the Dooley house ever since Kelsey's teeth came in. The first time I walked into Adams, I told my daughter that the green beans are always a test of a great barbecue restaurant, and they were perfect. You know about the ribs that melt in your mouth, and my favorite, the turkey plate. But be sure to go in on Fridays for Nana's Fish Nuggets. They will melt in your mouth. Adams Rib Co., a Gainesville great. Hey, this is Pat Dooley, and I want to tell you about BMI TeleMed, a company that focuses on weight loss management. The co-founders are UF grad pharmacists with over 50 years of experience in pharmacy and health and wellness, so you know you can trust them. They use a convenient, easy-to-use online telepath platform. And together with their medical doctor, they will collaborate to prescribe, dispense, and deliver to your door anywhere in Florida. People ask me every day how I lost 50 pounds, and I'm happy to say my doctor got it kick-started when he prescribed Ozempic. It works by making you feel fuller sooner, therefore you eat less and lose weight naturally and painlessly. These guys are not only going to help you achieve getting the weight off, but really focus on keeping the weight off, achieve, and maintain. BMI prices are very affordable for those whose insurance doesn't cover Ozempic or Wegovy for weight loss. No contracts, no hidden fees. Consultations are always free, so contact them online through their website, bmitelemed.com. Okay, and welcome back to another Duly Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI and Imaging from the Meldon Law Gator Studios here at the Ponderosa. Appreciate all of you for listening in and appreciate our great guests. By the way, it's time for us to get to Hesser and Kipke's three things. Hesser and Kipke, of course, can be reached at 352-339-9920, and you for all your needs in family law and workers' compensation. We appreciate Hesser and Kipke. All right, number one on Hesser and Kipke. It's Arch Manning time at Texas, I guess. You know, Quinn Ewers, there was this talk he was going to go in the portal, and everybody was freaking out, going, "Oh man, this day they got to get him," you know. And then he declared for the draft. Now, I will say this. He's a very talented young man, but he's not a great passer of the football. He's very inconsistent and struggled. I thought he could have used another year, but maybe that's as good as he'll ever get with college coaching. You never know. But it's his decision, his life. And now Arch Manning is the guy. And, of course, they'll bring in guys to compete with him, but he is the man right now, and it's pretty cool. It's actually going to make college football even better, you know, more exciting, more, you know, it's DJ Lagway versus Arch Manning in Gainesville. It's coming up, man. You're going to have to want to get those tickets. Think about that. I've told everybody how much tougher the schedule is next year, because all those home games now are going to be on the road, but because you have to go to LSU, you have to go to Texas A&M, you have to go to, just trying to think, Kentucky. And again, I don't know how bad Kentucky's going to be, but you get some real gems at home, including Tennessee and including, of course, the Texas game. Tennessee and Texas are going to be, and I think they play somebody and FSU back to back at home. I can't remember whether it's Tennessee or Texas, one or the other, and then FSU back to back at home to finish the season, which is pretty cool. So there'll be a lot of enthusiasm there as well. But anyway, it is Arch Manning time. Hopefully he'll still be around by the time that the Gators get to play him. All right, let's move along. And I don't know where Quinn Ewers is going to go in the draft because, look, he's got some flaws. There's a lot raw there. But there's also some great things. He does some great things. He's got a history of being injured too. So, I mean, to me, it's almost like you're drafting another Anthony Richardson. And it may work out and it may not. Still may work out with Anthony. Who knows? With Quinn Ewers, who knows? I think there's no short thing right there. Anyway, let's get to number 2, which is a weird story on our Hesser and Kipke 3 things in this whole Dion to the Cowboys thing where Dion is talking to him and they're talking to him. And you've got to do that. If you're Jerry Jones and you don't talk to him and at least get his opinion or at least get his take on things, you're an idiot, which sometimes people will say he is an idiot. But my thing is, you've got to make sure that your fans find out that you've talked to Dion, that you at least talked to him, and you for whatever reason you made a different hire, and you can blame me for that, but I at least made an effort, and I don't know. So I think that's why he did, or maybe he's just going to hire him, and we'll see. But that's going to be an interesting dynamic. And of course, the big thing is, well, he wants to coach his sons. And I'm like, it's not the way life works. This is not nepotism. I mean, there is nepotism all rampant all over the NFL, all over college football. That's why there are 8 Bowdens coaching. Why there are Coach Spurrier and his son are coaching, and his other son. Why you can go on up and down the list. Frank Beamer and Shane Beamer, and there's all kinds of nepotism, and it's good. It's good in a way. It probably has cost somebody from getting a job that they might have deserved, whatever. That's why some people don't like nepotism. But anyway, whatever the point, it is you're not allowed to coach your own kids in the NFL. Now, it doesn't mean you can't. It matters. It's not going to be put together for you. Like Dallas is not going to trade its first and second round picks for somebody else's first round so they can get Shador, and then they can come back in the third round or whatever and get the other one. But I don't know. Look, it's interesting. I talked about it last week how the number one story is in college football is going to be Bill Belichick, and last year 2 years ago it was Deion Sanders. Last year it was just kind of a mixture of all of it. But next year it's going to be Bill Belichick. But if Deion goes to the NFL, he'll be the biggest story in the NFL, and he likes that. You know that. All right, we'll see what happens. Let's get to number 3 on our Hesser and Kipke 3 things, and that is the Australian Open, and which I don't pay a whole lot of attention to. Again, Ben Shelton, how good he's done, we kind of get more interested. But the one good thing I like about it is I like something on in the morning that's live. Like I don't want to watch old games in the morning. I don't want to watch. I don't want to watch people yelling and screaming at each other over each other either. I just like to watch a game, have it on the background while I'm working, or even just be into a game and start rooting for somebody or a player or different something. Anyway, I just like to have it live action on. I wish it was on. Something was on every morning. I think there should be a law, and if I was president, this would happen. 24 hours a day, there has to be at least 2 stations that are carrying a sporting event so that you can go back and forth. At least 24 hours a day, and they're never allowed to overlap commercials. Let's see if we can't get that through Congress. I think we can. I think we can get it through Congress, and I think we can. I'll sign it into law when I'm president. Patrick B. Dooley, all big letters, first letters, and you know why? I'll give you a quick story. Arnold Palmer was my favorite. And Arnold Palmer signed his with a big A and a big P. So when I started signing my name, and I had to kind of come up with my signature, I guess in high school, really, big P, big B, just like Arnie. I did not golf as well as him, though. We did both play on high school golf teams. All right, that's going to do it for our Hesser and Kipke. Let's move along to our Leonardo's and Millhopper quick picks. We will be mailing out to our winner, George Luttrell, his winning the $25 gift certificate at Leonardo's. We'll be doing that probably tomorrow. Let's go ahead and get another qualification started. We had a lot of good people that have, especially really gratifying to see a lot of people who got in that usually don't get in. And, hey, don't give up, man. We'll pick another one before, I would say probably by the end of January, maybe early February. But anyway, you still have one pick that is left to go, and that is Monday night. But I'm not going to do that one. I'm going to save it for Monday, okay? Thursday, I'm just talking about the college part of it. We're going to give you 3 games instead. How about this parlay we're going to give you? Now, I can't wait to see how this goes. And if somebody hits all 3 of them, if only one person hits all 3 of them, I will just go ahead and call the contest and give you the prize. But only if only one. If three do, then okay, you're the number 1 qualifiers. But all you got to do is hit 2 to make money, in theory, but also to qualify for the contest. Okay. Well, we'll have a lot. We'll have more stuff than I've had for a while. I'm getting some stuff in. Okay, here we go. Leonardo's at Millhopper. Quick picks. Parlay. You got to hit. If you hit all 3, I'll give you the prize right now. If you're the only person who hits all 3. Notre Dame -9 or +9 against Ohio State, of course, national championship. Rams, Philly. -6 is Philly in that game. And then the Commanders and the Lions are -7.5. So you got 7.5 point favorite, 6 point favorite, 9 point favorite. One of those will cover. I guarantee you. One of them will cover. You just got to figure out which one. And that'll be fun. I'm going to be excited. I got something in my eye and I just dropped my book. Other than that, I'm doing good here. Maybe I get too excited. But yeah, that'll be cool. Maybe we can have a winner on Monday night. All right, that's good. I'm glad I just thought of that in the last minute. All right, let's move along to our Adams Rib Co. Gator of the Week. And of course, our Gators of the Week are brought to you by Adams Rib Company, the place to go to get ribs, to get coleslaw, baked beans. Like we can go all day, man. Potato salad. Hot dog, some of the best hot dogs I've ever had. Karen loves their hot dogs. Everything that you get there is great. And all right, our Gator of the Week, you know who it is for me? Now, I may have missed this earlier in the year. I don't watch all of every game that's ever played. But when Dante Fowler came up, and I was like, oh, finally, a Gator. And I'm like, I'm worried that he might say his high school or something. But I started thinking about it. Dante Fowler, after he got done with his last game at Florida, says, I don't ever want to take this uniform off. And he meant it. He played his butt off in that Birmingham Bowl. Nobody wanted to be there, but he did. And he played hard, and they won the game. So I said, nah, he's not going to do that. He's not going to go, East Duval High School or whatever. So when he was introduced on Monday night, he said, Dante Fowler, University of Florida, go Gators. And that made my day. That just made my day that he did that, and that I wasn't wrong about Dante Fowler. I thought he was a pretty good dude, and I was dead right about him. So he is our Gator of the weekend. So, or Gator of the week. So hopefully we're going to root for them to win all their games. I was rooting for them anyway because I like Dan Quinn. There's another Gator. Anyway, I texted Dan a couple times, and I may text him about that. Let's see what he says. All right, let us move along to our BMI TeleMed Overachiever of the weekend. Of course, our BMI TeleMed Overachiever is Marie R., a 54-year-old Pinellas County school teacher who started therapy on January 24th of last year. She was 5'5" and 285 pounds then. Last week, she's still 5'5", but now weighs 205 pounds. Marie is BMI TeleMed's Overachiever of the Week. Okay, well, it is time now for This, That, and the Other. It is brought to you by our great friends at Ballyhoo, we got them back on board. We appreciate that. And also by Ironwood and by Darth Shackhow Insurance. We always appreciate Darth Shackhow as well. And, of course, Ironwood's where we have the Bob Dooley, when we have it, if we have it. It's up in the air right now. That's all I'm going to say. And it's very up in the air. Anyway, let's get to the this. And the this was, man, when you saw Florida win that game on the road on Saturday at Fayetteville, all of a sudden you kind of lost your mind. You went, what is going on here? Why? This team is really good. On the road win like that, that's a quad one. But now they got all these quad ones. And then on the that is that on Tuesday, you said, hey, they've also won 16 straight at home, so that's going to be another one. Let's go watch it. Even though it's a 9 o'clock game, let's go and fill it up. And then the other is that they got beat. There was no energy. And I don't think it was the fans' fault. The players didn't create any energy. They just didn't. For some reason, they didn't have it. Maybe they were tired. I mean, they flew back very late Saturday night, and obviously we're playing on Tuesday. Maybe they got a little tired. I don't know. I don't know what the problem. I don't know why they didn't play better than they did, and they lost by a point. Okay, but it is what it is. And what it is today is this, that, and the other. Just don't get ahead of yourself in a college basketball season, or even a college football season, certainly, or a baseball season, but any season, but especially college basketball. There are 32 games or whatever, however many they play, 31, 30, whatever. It depends on who you're playing. And then you got the tournament, the SEC tournament, and then you have the NCAA tournament if you get in. That's a lot of basketball. Judge every game by what you did that game, and that's it. That's all you can judge it. Every game is its own game. All right. That is this, that, and the other, and we appreciate them for being part of our show. Well, we have not yet gotten to the Hugh, Cain, Allstate Mayhem moment.
The Gator Nation is in good hands with local Allstate agent Hugh Cain. Stop by Alachua Marketplace Plaza in Alachua and get a free quote today.
Well, when I retired, my wife said, all you're going to do is drink and play golf. And this isn't me, just so you know. This is somebody else, some random guy. And this is what happens when you drink and play golf. But he gets those backward staggers going. You can't recover from it. But luckily, I don't think it's gotten that bad out there. But it's a pretty decent looking golf course. Yeah, but anyway, don't drink and drive your golf cart, I guess is what I'm saying. But that is our Mayhem moment, brought to you by Hugh, Cain, Allstate. We appreciate them. All right, we have our swamp games of the week, and the weekend. We've got so many for you that I don't know how we're going to fit them all in, but we're just only going to give you the highlights because there's so much going on. All right, tonight the women's basketball team plays against Ole Miss. That is on the road, 9 o'clock on the SEC channel. Wednesday night, of course, Florida plays Texas. 4 o'clock, not Wednesday night, Saturday night. That would be because today is Friday, okay? Saturday night, Florida plays Texas, 4 o'clock on ESPN2. So that's where you find that game. You also have the, obviously, all the playoff games that are going on. Well, gymnastics, 7:30 is on ESPN2 against number 2 LSU. So that's going to be what we're watching in our house, I can tell you, Friday night. No doubt about that. 7:30 is when to start. Usually it's 6:30, but that obviously it's an hour later there. Okay, and then you get to the football. The NFL Saturday, you've got the first game is at 5 or 4 o'clock on ESPN. That is Houston and Kansas City. Kansas City 7.5-point favorite. Washington, Detroit. Detroit's a 5.5-point favorite. That is on Fox. Yeah. That's what it's called, Fox. All right, and then Sunday, you got the Rams and against whoever the Rams are playing. I can't read my writing there. It's just so pathetic. Anyway, that's on NBC. Detroit, that's who they're playing. I said Detroit back here. But now I see what I did wrong. Washington plays Minnesota. Okay, no, and Minnesota's out of it. Philadelphia. Okay, I finally got it. Or maybe not. Anyway, those games are on NBC and CBS. I've messed this up about as badly as I can. This is why I've got to start wearing my glasses when I do this, just the reading part of it. And then Saturday, there's a really good game too, noon o'clock on ESPN, Alabama at Kentucky. That'll be a fun one to watch. So you've got all this stuff to do, or you could head out to the Amanda Ranch barbecue that they're having, where they're going to judge some ribs and some chili. And Amanda Ranch, all the funds go to Amanda Ranch, which takes people that are going through really tough times in their life and lets them kind of get away from it. It's a really good cause. Started by our buddy Billy Henson, of course, member of the Great Wall of Florida. So that's where I'll be at some point. I'll be watching a lot of games too, and you will too. And hopefully next time I can read a little better. I got to write better. To read better, you have to write better. You know who's playing. You know when the games are. You know what channel they're on. Just go watch them at the swamp and have fun. All right? I may be there too, eating some wings and drowning myself in my sorrows. Let's have a great show. Monday, look, our show today was great. We had a good time. We'll be back Monday. Until then, I am Pat Dooley. I am deep, I'm way back, and I am out of here.